to the first episode of the Ignorant Skeptics podcast. We are a bunch of guys here that know very little about a lot of things, and we're going to use that to inform you, probably very poorly, about some of the topics around the world that are going on, that have happened through history. Um, just doing deep dives into topics that we don't usually get to do on our other podcast, the Deep Impact podcast. So this is mainly going to be a podcast where we, like I said, do deep dives into topics, have debates about them. You get to see
Well, you're doing a really bad job of explaining to people we're simply going to talk about conspiracy theories and argue if we think they're accurate or
But
not.
No,
the thing is,
it's
conspiracy theories suck. So we're idiots, but we have very strong opinions, and you're going to hear
exactly.
that. So
They're not entirely all conspiracy theories.
That's fair.
Some of the things that we're going to be talking about are actual history, or things that are going to be happening that are one of the topics that we're going to be talking about tonight could potentially be groundbreaking science that could revolutionize history. Okay.
All
we'll
right.
stay
Okay.
tuned.
I digress.
So, with that being said, the first topic that we're going to talk about tonight is something that has changed the way that scientists look at history, and that is called the Younger Dryas impact theory or impact hypothesis. Okay. And for those of you that do not know, the Younger Dryas uh, impact theory is a speculative attempt to explain an alternative to the long-standing and widely accepted cause of a shutdown of North Atlantic, North America, which is a potential cause for the extinction of some of the megafauna in North America and the Northern Hemisphere
Do
about
you know?
12,800 years ago.
Okay. Since I've never heard of this,
You
so what
haven't?
do you mean a shutdown of North America? And do you know which extinction that they're talking about?
I do, actually. So, so a little backstory on this. So, have you ever heard of the Clovis people, the Clovis culture? Okay.
No.
So, quick little backstory on them. The Clovis culture is a prehistoric Paleo American culture. So it was mainly in North America. So they were around um, Blackwater and Clovis, New Mexico, and that's where they got their name from. So this culture existed roughly between 11,500 years ago and 10,800 years before present. Okay. So this was way back in history. All right. But
Yeah, like
this,
8,000 BCE ish.
yes. Um, but there's actually, hold on, what is that? What is BP? Before present. Okay. So they're saying that they've actually found, like, not pottery, but arrowheads and different hunting tools and stuff from them that dates back even further than that. It dates back as far back as 15,000 years ago. Okay. So
That's interesting
what?
because the earliest humans are noted to have like of what we consider modern humans. I believe it's what about 20,000 years ago is when their history starts. So that'd be very very early on in that time span.
Yes. So that is, it's widely believed that this culture, these people, was the North American branch. So that they're saying that these were the first people in North America.
Hmm.
Forget what you heard about. Uh, these were the these were the Native Americans.
Okay.
uh, these were the ones that before Christopher Columbus found America. You know what I mean? Just
Well, yeah.
you know.
Before like Norwegian Vikings
Exactly. Yes.
and everything.
Yes.
Like these are the like native groups.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, and they were native to like the Great Plains region in America.
Okay.
So they hunted, some of the larger land animals in the United States, stuff like in present day United States. But what the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis is it talks about a comet strike. that struck most of northern hemisphere. They're saying that it actually hit around 24 sites in the northern hemisphere. About 14 of them have been identified in the United States. Looks like one in Mexico, two in Canada, one in Greenland, and then about 6 or 7 over in Europe, with one stretching all the way over to Syria. So what they're saying is that, have you ever heard of the Tunguska effect, the Tunguska event?
No, not by name.
Okay. So this information is coming straight off of Wikipedia. I've heard of it before. It was just the quickest source of information. So it was in 1908, June 30th, 1908, approximately a 12 megaton explosion occurred above the ground near Tunguska, Russia, which is in eastern Siberia. So basically what happened is that the atmospheric explosion of a stony asteroid, this asteroid was about between 50 to 60 meters in size, so 160 to 200 feet in size. It disintegrated about 5 to 10 kilometers above the ground, and it leveled, I think they said anywhere about 250 kilograms of ground, like of land, completely flattened it, trees on the ground everywhere. Luckily, the zone of leveled forest occupied an area of 2,150 square kilometers, so 830 square miles. But it was in Siberia, which was completely uninhabited, so there were no
not by humans.
Yeah, there were no casualties from this incident.
Yeah.
But what they're saying is the Younger Dryas impact was very similar to that, except instead of one solid asteroid or comet, it broke up, and it was a lot larger, and it broke up into these smaller, smaller pieces that came down. Some hit, some caused craters. One in Greenland, they're saying that it actually hit the ground and caused a crater up in Greenland. Some of these are saying that they exploded above the ground, different things like that. So it is basically saying that this caused a new ice age, technically, is what they're saying. So the Earth was in a period of warming when this hit, caused rapid melting, sea level rise, and then the dust and the particles from that sent them back into a smaller ice age, which came back. And that is when the Clovis culture went from hunter-gatherers to settlements, and they started creating settlements around the world, around the United States. So, Mark, have you heard of this before?
Yeah, so I'm gonna kind of just reiterate what you said, because to kind of explain it in like easier terms, but you kind of got a little scientific background, which is cool.
But no, and that's another thing that we should say throughout this podcast is that we're going to be like explaining things in layman's terms.
Yeah,
so we're gonna
that's the whole point of the ignorant.
Yeah, we're not gonna try and dumb it down, but
So there's a new, like Bo said, there's a new theory that we had a second ice age that happened about 11,700 to 12,900 years ago. They called it
How long did it last?
Impact. They're still figuring that out. So, Bo has a lot right, and there's just a few little things that I'm going to nitpick at.
Absolutely.
So it's a hypothesized scenario. There are some people that think that this comet, asteroid, whatever, didn't actually create any crater. It didn't actually hit the ground. It was, as Bo said, astronomically huge, and when it entered the atmosphere, it blew up into hundreds of thousands of pieces, and the seismic wave that it caused, by the time the friction from everything got down to Earth, it set everything on fire. There was places all over North and South America. It was all over Europe. Asia. It literally happened everywhere. And so what they're assuming is that all of the dust that when the smaller ones did hit the ground, while they didn't leave craters per se, they did leave holes in the ground, larger holes, which are probably now what we assume are like where we have built towns that are more in like a bowl, and you kind of drive down into the town. Is kind of like it was like a bowl. They weren't super deep, but there was a noticeable elevation difference. And all of the fires from the atmosphere, all the ground fires, once everything was done burning, there was so much ash and everything left that it blocked out the radiation from the sun, which then led to this other ice age. Bo, I think you talked about the black mats. I think you brought those up. That's what a lot of people are saying are craters. Yeah. They're not craters. They're simply a layer of soil. They call it the YD boundaries. Yep. Where they found them with more than 100 sites across 4 different continents. So the biggest parts that they're looking at right now, they're looking at 5 sites, 4 of which are in the United States. California has 3 of them, and I think Arizona has the other 2. And then there's one in Chile they're looking at. That's what they're really studying right now. And as Bo said, it kind of, when these hit, which then ultimately, once the ice age sort of ended the second time around, most of what was here was dead.
Yeah, that's my biggest, I guess, hold up about all this stuff is it's like an ice age doesn't just end in a couple years. Like ice ages typically, I know if they're on a global perspective, if they're because most ice ages are caused by continental drift about the continents being in certain places at certain times and affecting the currents. But even if it's from volcanic activity volcanoes have absolutely caused ice ages. Those ice ages last for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. If we're talking something that's happened in the last 15,000 years or 20,000 years at the absolute maximum, I would find it very, very hard to believe that it would take that long for things to totally reset.
So, they think it happened. They think it took about 1,300 years for all of this.
That's not a lot of time at all when it comes.
Well, I know. I mean,
when it comes to the impact that
things,
stuff
yeah,
has
and again,
on the world.
1,300's not.
Yeah, but they're also
settle that easy.
They're also not saying though that that it was like a complete ice age with glaciers coming down like that completely covered the world like they did in the first ice age.
Well, yeah.
It was just
by continental drift, which is very slow. I understand.
Yes, it was just a drastic temperature change. So it was just a sudden drop in temperature. I mean, it says here their average temperature went from, what does it look like? About negative. Hold on, I can't read this chart. Who the hell decided to make that chart? That is the dumbest looking chart I've ever seen in my life.
In this theory, this hypothesis, they don't ever call it an ice age. They call it a cooling period.
Yes.
And so they don't ever actually claim it was an ice age. Obviously, James, as you said, ice ages lasted for hundreds of thousands of years.
And again, I understand that this wasn't technically
tens of thousands.
It doesn't meet the criteria. But at the same time, it's like things that cause there have been volcanic eruptions that have taken millions of years for the Earth to recover just from a singular volcano.
Yeah.
So it's like for an asteroid to hit like this and cause so much change to the environment to where we still see its effects today, I just find it hard to believe that in a few thousand years that it was just like, oh, okay, it's just like everything's pretty much reset, and obviously so the ignorance part comes in. It just due to my knowledge of extinctions and how certain periods of time are affected globally and catastrophe by cooling and by volcanic activity, it just doesn't add up. So
I kind of misspoke when I said it was another ice age. I shouldn't have said that.
That's fine, even if it's not. Again, this just seems to have had a much more widespread effect on the greater planet as a whole And
Yes.
again, that stuff usually does not just go away in a couple thousand
No.
years
So
either.
this article that I
Well,
found here that
this
I meant
this
to
is what they're saying is that.
okay.
I'm sorry, Bo. Go ahead.
I was just going to say this article says that it was a cold period that lasted roughly from 10,800 to 9,500
Mhm.
BC. It was a fascinating and somewhat disturbing example of abrupt climate change. It is so their temperatures were on the rise from the first ice age, from the last glacial period around 18,000 BC, but around 10,800 in a matter of decades or perhaps less. Temperatures in Europe dropped about 7 degrees Celsius.
Which is a
Um,
ton.
yes, but they're also saying in Greenland shows an even larger drop, about 15.
Which
It
is huge. I mean,
in Yeah,
that's an average temperature of almost 30 degrees.
yeah. They're saying in England it got so cold that glaciers started forming. In the Netherlands, in winter, temperatures regularly fell below 20 degrees Celsius. No, sorry, minus 20. So it affected the climate as far as Syria. Cold spell lasted about 1,300 years, and then just as suddenly as it began, it ended. Around 9,500 BC, temperatures in Europe bounced back. And ice cores that they took from Greenland show a warming of 10 degrees Celsius within a time scale of just a few years. Um,
That's insane. And I understand
and
why there's
that's
a theory now is because it's like you're being presented with this evidence. And so that means that either your evidence or how you obtain your evidence is flawed or something is wrong with the theory. And so it's like that's what's very, very interesting about this.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. This is still technically. I mean, they created this theory was been around since what, like 2008. But now they're getting real scientific evidence and things like that. So we're getting more and more
I
information
think
coming
this is
out.
Well,
less
just
of
because
a.
something's a theory doesn't make it untrue.
No,
Technically,
exactly.
we always call it the law of gravity, but it is really the theory of gravity because we haven't found the source of the
Yeah,
gravity, which is like the quote unquote graviton. So it's like, yeah, something that every living being has experienced that's ever been born on this planet. I mean, from our last universal common ancestor, or just every ancestor that every piece of life has ever experienced. Like has dealt with gravity, and it's still a theory because we don't fully understand exactly how it works,
yeah.
like compared to other
Well,
things.
They're saying that how Mark said that there's not a lot of evidence about there being like actual craters.
Mhm.
That's, I mean, true over the United States. There's
Yeah,
no,
well,
there
and stuff
haven't
burns up over the atmosphere all the time too.
exactly.
Mhm.
But there is now new evidence that it's called the Hiawatha crater, and it's beneath Greenland.
Okay.
It's beneath an ice shelf, and that is what they're looking at as one of the major impacts from the Younger Dryas. I'm trying to see if they can if this article says how deep it is. If anything, at one edge, it looks like it could be over 750 meters deep.
Ooh, that's like, yeah, 750,
That's it.
multiplied by about 3 is like 225, so it's probably about 200, like 2,500 feet deep,
Yeah, it says
maybe a little less.
dating a crater like this is certainly possible, but because this crater is so deep below the ice, they would have to core down through over 3,000 feet of ice and into the crater itself. So it's pretty deep. I mean, it's over 3,000 feet. The crater itself is over 3,000, under 3,000 feet of ice.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Which
still that's
just hold on, just think of that for a hot second. 3,000 feet of ice, like,
yeah.
whoo. Mark just texted and said what he was trying to say during all of that was that there is a hole in the history where we knew something happened. We weren't sure what, but finding those black mats, the soil levels allow them to assume that there was a comet of some kind and that the fires it caused on the ground and the ash caused the drastic drop of 20 degrees in the matter of only about 12,000 or 1,200 years.
So he's saying like, all this stuff started adding up, and then finding the black mats caused them to like combine
Exactly.
the ideas. and say,
that was the smoking gun.
This could be an explanation, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
Again, I still find some things kind of hard to believe about that, and I feel like there's a lot more missing. I feel like you'd need a lot more direct evidence instead of just being like, this could be why this happens. But then again, most hypotheses are kind of like that anyway. When it comes to things that we just speculate about, that we don't have anything except like the ability to date these things and maybe chemically analyze some of the things. Like, my thing is, I want to know how they actually get the evidence of what the temperature change range was. Like, I want to know what practical applications they use to do that, because
I'm not too sure of.
Really cool. I mean, I have no idea. I know they've done it in more applications than this, but I'm just curious. I just think it's cool. Something I'm probably going to look up after this video.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to find that out personally. But I was listening to a podcast today where they were talking about this, and they were talking in depth about the black mats and how that was definitely the smoking gun. But they were saying that you could definitely see a change in the soil composition. You could see it before, and then there was the black mat, and then it was completely different there on after.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like a light, like kind of like this color, sand, like sand and dirt, black line, and then dark, and then light. It gradually kept getting lighter until
what did they do?
Topsoil.
Yeah, what did they do for like chemical tests? What they reveal from that? Because it's like, I mean, obviously, if that stuff's like soot and ash, that makes a lot more sense. But
they said there was some soot and ash, but most of it was still the composition of the dirt and stuff like that. But it was like charred, like it was to the point where it was burnt. So I mean, it was ash and stuff like that, but it was still.
But it wasn't like impact, like hot ash that was spewed. It was like, or hot dust that settled. It was like something had been burned, more like charcoal, more like carbon than like just a basic, like a soot type of a thing.
Yes, but there were also places nearer to the impacts where they were finding something called nano diamonds.
Is that just really, really tiny diamonds?
Microscopic. But they were saying that, like, you know, you dig up the soil, you know, whatever, and they ran tests on it, you know, high-powered microscopes, and they were able to see these very, very thin or very small diamonds. Was that another text from our... Oh, good Lord.
This is a bigger text.
It was a very bigger text.
Ooh, I'm curious.
This is another text from our missing partner in crime. It says the leading hypothesis, first proposed by Finnish scientist Klaus, however you pronounce that guy's name, Claes Ruth, in 1982, and later expanded by American climatologist Wallace Broecker and others, postulated that large amounts of fresh water were discharged into the North Atlantic about 12,800 years ago. More specifically, the retreat of the Laurentine ice sheet allowed Lake Agassiz, which was a glacial meltwater lake that covered a large part of North Central America. It drained eastward into the Atlantic Ocean rather than southward into the Mississippi. Broecker and American geologist George Denton proposed that this large influx of fresh water may have stopped high-density seawater.
And where was this exactly? Like, on a map, where, like, geographically was it?
Geographically, think North Dakota.
If you're saying that it flowed into the Atlantic Ocean as opposed to the Mississippi, so that would put it somewhere probably like
west of the Mississippi. Well, they're also saying northwest of the Mississippi. In the north. Okay, so hold on. Proposed that this large influx of fresh water may have stopped higher density seawater in the North Atlantic from descending to lower depths, thereby interrupting thermohaline circulation, which is a system of surface and deepwater currents that distributes large amounts of heat around the globe and initiating a short-term return to glacial conditions.
Saying that the influx of the water messed up the ocean current.
Mm-hmm.
So it created, like, the fresh water from the glacier was thereby run off and running into the salt water. And so if it ran into the Atlantic Ocean, it'd probably create like the estuary conditions, which is again when seawater and freshwater mix, into somewhere along the coast, disrupting the Atlantic current that
Yep,
flows by the eastern U.S.
correct.
Okay, all right.
Which
I mean, that
which
honestly that
caused
makes a
the
little bit
period of
more
cooling.
sense.
Yes.
Yeah, because ocean currents have, besides the amount of carbon level in the atmosphere, and as opposed to being buried with beneath earth and rock, not just coal, but if you know what I'm talking about, you know the process. But
I do.
yeah, but the ocean currents are just as, I mean, they're a little bit more free spinning, but they have more to do with temperature than the carbon level does.
Yes.
But yeah, those are the two biggest factors.
So real quick, before we move on to the next thing, James, I just found a picture of a soil sample that they where you can see the black mats, and right in there is where you're finding the nano diamonds.
Well, yeah, I believe
So you
you.
can see how it's, and
Yeah,
then
I mean that looks like a lot of rock layers. If you go to like the Grand Canyon, how they can see, I mean, how you can see different layers of geologic time. Or I mean, layers can be
yes,
very, very distinct, and they get a lot of information based on that. So it's like it's not
yes,
really the site of that stuff that's important. It's the chemical analysis or fossil analysis of whatever is present within those layers
yeah.
in the distinct layers.
This Younger Dryas impact, their thinking helped lead to the extinction of some of these, animals around the world. Some of the larger land animals, like the oh crap, the North American lion, the sloth, not the sloth bear. Yes, the short faced cave bear. Different things like these. One of the big ones that they're thinking this helped lead to the extinction of was, oh come on
Woolly
guys,
Mammoth.
thank you, the woolly mammoth. But there is actually a company called Colossus. So they actually have this company, Colossus, has a property in Siberia, northern Siberia, called Pleistocene Park. Okay, and right now it consists of an enclosed area of about 20 square kilometers, which is home to 10 major herbivore species.
Like
Reindeer.
currently living herbivore species, right? Or are they
Yes,
extinct
yes, yes.
herbivores?
No, they're current.
Okay.
Reindeer, you could say, and horse, moose, bison, muskox, yak, Kalmykian cow, sheep, camels, and goats.
Camels. I'll be damned.
Camels in Siberia.
Yeah, that I didn't know that was a thing.
But the next animal that will be taking calling Pleistocene Park home is none other than the woolly mammoth.
Sort of.
Technically, yes, it is.
What
For
is the
all
process
intents,
that they're going through for this?
okay. So I got my information from someone that is heavily involved in the project. He was on another podcast. So what they're doing is they have, you have woolly mammoth DNA. They are finding,
Yeah.
they're finding woolly mammoth teeth, tusks, all this stuff. So they're extracting the DNA out of that. The closest living relative to the woolly mammoth is the Indian elephant.
Just
So
go
you see
on.
where this, do
I'm
you
going to
see
tell
where
you
this
what
is
I'm going to
going?
tell you what my incredible problem that I see with this is.
Okay, so what they're doing is they are, for lack of better terms, they're mixing the two DNA, creating an embryo, and in 32 months, I don't know how long an elephant's gestation period is, an Indian elephant will give birth to a woolly mammoth. But now, the reason they are doing this, they're saying they're doing it to counteract climate change.
No, it's just because a bunch of drunk college kids with archaeology degrees and biology degrees got together and were like, "Let's make a woolly mammoth." Wait, how
I
are you
mean
going to
that.
combat climate change by doing that?
No, I'm scrolling through their actual page, and if you want to check it out, it's just colossus.com.
Okay.
It's actually a really cool webpage. Like, okay. So according to the Arctic program, permafrost is currently storing 1,600 billion metric tons of carbon. So permafrost, for those of you that don't know, it's a permanently frozen layer beneath Earth's surface, consists of soil, gravel, sand, and it's bound together by ice. So the mammoth's size and thunderous gait and vast migration patterns were active benefactors in preserving the health of the Arctic region. The Mammoth Steppe was once the world's largest ecosystem, spanning from France to Canada and the Arctic islands to Canada or to China. It was home to millions of large herbivores, and these animals were key to protecting an ecosystem so vast it affected, if not almost controlled, the climate. So it has been estimated the total mass of plants and animals in Siberia's tundra is now 100-fold less than when it was a steppe. So what they're trying to do is basically bring back woolly mammoths and help bring back the plant life and everything like that into this the Arctic steppe and help reduce carbon emissions. I feel like I know where you're going with this.
Huge questions. Okay, what's the first one? I want to see if you can guess one of them.
Mammoths are going to produce a large amount of carbon.
No, I mean, yeah, but
it's methane. They're going to do methane. Lot of crap.
But okay, if what they're saying is true, again, I've never heard the permafrost thing, and I've never heard that the effects that the animals physically being there can have. I assume that they've done the math, and that will work out to where it would offset from the gases emitted by the animals. Okay, number one. Okay, how much energy does it take to put in all of the, not just the research, but like the physical raising of this animal, all the electronic stuff, all of the things that they have to do in order to power the machines to make and implant the embryos to get them viable? Like, when you have to do this for at least a couple hundred of these animals, like in Siberia, you're probably not going to just put up a bunch of solar panels, because while it's clear, it's not exactly the not snowiest place in the world. So it's not a desert. It's not like Antarctica. The snow accumulates there. So that's going to be really hard. My second problem with this is, you said that Indian elephants are their main relatives, and this is who they would be going through, like, for gestating. Indian elephants are an endangered species. Do you have any idea
they are?
Yeah, how difficult birth is for an animal? Why would we be sacrificing the well-being and the numbers and the genetic diversity for sacrificing these Indian elephants, or not necessarily sacrificing, but putting these Indian elephants at risk and not having them breed with each other to do a project that sounds kind of like a fever dream?
Okay, I actually just scrolled down here, and they have an answer for that.
Okay.
So elephant conservation, it's no secret that elephant populations around the globe are endangered. So actually, Asian elephants are the most populous species of elephants.
It doesn't matter. They're still not even threatened. They're still endangered.
Yes. Did you know? I did not know that there were 3 species of elephants. I thought there were only 2. I thought there were only
African and Asian.
Yeah, there's African. There's African forest and African savanna.
Okay, I might have heard that before. I haven't latched onto it, but that makes sense. I didn't know that.
So they're saying that in the last populations of Asian elephants fell by an estimated 50% over the last 75 years. There's anywhere between 20,000 to 40,000 left in the wild. Okay, they're less endangered than the savanna elephant. Thought they were more endangered. Okay, so we will engage in genetic research to reduce the number of elephant deaths related to EEHV, which is elephant extinction caused by humans.
But that's the thing, is it's like they're just still trying this stuff for an auxiliary purpose, as opposed to actually getting the elephant.
Oh, it's a virus. I apologize.
To a stable level.
So they have 4 milestones that they're trying to do with this research to end elephant extinction. One is to preserve the genetic code of all 3 living elephant species.
Oh,
to
yeah.
record and understand extant elephantine population genomes, cure EEHV in all elephant populations, which is
What is
a
EDHD? Did
virus.
you say that was a virus?
It is. It's a virus that only affects the elephant population equally in the wild and captivity.
Yeah, but
And
none of that's even close to the threat that poachers and habitat loss causes. I mean,
exactly.
if you fix poachers and habitat loss, you don't even have to worry about any of that other stuff, and that has nothing to do with even like global warming. I mean, it does, but it wouldn't matter if you had nobody hunting the elephants and killing and trapping the elephants, and you had nobody destroying their habitat in order to make homes for them. You would not have to worry about anything until temperatures got so cold that the elephants themselves were starting to die. Like,
Yes.
those two things. So it's like, yeah, that other stuff is nice and they're real fancy. And it's like, yeah, we're preserving the genome. But it's like, you know, there are more applicable problems to where you wouldn't have to worry about that stuff with if you
Oh, I
funded
completely agree.
that. I mean, again, I know that that's in a theoretical perfect world, but it's just like, that most of that stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah, but basically what they're trying to do is like back to the whole.
They're trying to clone woolly mammoths.
Pretty much. Mark, what were you gonna say?
I think it's
Mark?
cool that they're doing it.
Oh yeah.
They're
also
cool. It's like there are other important things before this part in the process. That's like, again, if elephant populations were stabilized and they were not threatened or endangered, it'd be like, fuck yeah, let's clone woolly mammoths, especially to combat climate change. But like,
I
there's
draw
so many other problems.
I draw the line at hairy elephants.
What you don't like woolly mammoths?
No, I do, but there are.
what he's saying. I feel like I know what he's trying to say, and it's that woolly mammoth is where he draws the line. If we bring back like a saber-toothed tiger, he's checking out.
Gotcha. Okay. There are definitely some other animals that are non-predatory that we should consider. That would be cool to bring back.
Deal with saber-toothed tigers.
You have other priorities.
And that's the thing. They're also talking about trying to potentially bring back the first avian species is the dodo.
That would be awesome.
A completely harmless, stupid-looking bird.
They are stupid looking, contrary to popular belief. Their intelligence was actually thought to be a lot higher than most other animals. Like, I'm not talking about just like animals comparatively, but I'm talking about like higher than, like, put them in a class with like similar, not quite crows, but like birds of prey that aren't owls.
Yes.
Like the reason that they were dumb is because they had no need for millions and millions of years to develop any sort of a defense mechanism because they had no predators. So when you can't run because you don't need to run, like you can't bite because you don't need to bite anything to fight back, like, and someone just walks up to you and kicks you, like, for the first time, that's the first time anything for the last million years has gone up and caused a threat to you that wasn't due to you walking off the edge of a cliff. Like, so dodos would be really, really cool. But again, there are other birds that we have here that are dying that need that attention.
Exactly. But with that being said, if you personally, like James Piazza, could bring back one prehistoric animal through this process,
are we just doing prehistoric? Or are we doing any extinct?
Okay, I want to say let's do extinct, but no dinosaurs because we know how Jurassic Park turns out.
Well, I mean, you can have herbivores. Not all dinosaurs are T-Rex.
I said there are 7 movies that explain why bringing dinosaurs back is a bad idea.
Predatory dinosaurs.
Yes.
That being said, it'd be really cool to see an ichthyosaur, even though it's a carnivore. It's an aquatic carnivore. But plesiosaurs would be really cool too. I think, I don't know. There have been shoot, I'm trying to think. There were the giant sloths were really cool.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, there were also, man, I wish you'd asked me this beforehand because think about this stuff all the time. But just like the fact that there were all these super cool animals, like way back in that have just been that have gone extinct even before like human intervention. But
See, I have one that went extinct not too long ago.
well,
That
yeah, but I
I
thought you said
personally
prehistoric.
that not prehistoric. Any extinct animal.
Oh, okay, then mine's probably the Tasmanian tiger.
God, that's mine.
Why is it yours?
Just because the thing's cool looking.
Okay, well,
Like,
mine
and
actually has a reason. Is because when the Tasmanian tiger went extinct, it was the last surviving member of its family. So the
yes,
genetic diversity. So I mean, that goes back multiple. It's not the species. It's not the genus. It's three layers back of where it totally wiped it out of the genetic family tree of evolution, and just the amount of diversity that leaves when something like that dies is insanity. So it's like I
yeah,
feel like it would be really cool to bring back that type of a branch to actually have that living to where we could study it more and we could
yeah.
increase our knowledge of the diversity of animals prior to that and do some modern studies on a totally new family that we've never laid modern scientific eyes on.
And I think that the thylacine or the Tasmanian tiger is one of the animals that they're talking about bringing back.
Probably
But
because it's one of the more
potentially that
popular
like
ones.
exactly. Um, I mean, the last living relative was in what 1903
I think it was in the late
or
30s.
30, 1930,
The last
I
one
believe.
died in a zoo in the late 30s. I know the
Yes,
passenger pigeon, the last one, she died
36.
in 1914 in the Cincinnati Zoo, which is again
Hmm.
another incredible story because it's like there were more of passenger pigeons than there were any other types of pigeon, and that species went extinct. Like in only like a couple hundred years, like that's insanity. But yeah,
Now, I believe that they were talking about bringing the thylacine back, but
hmm
not putting it into Pleistocene Park because it wouldn't be in the correct habitat.
correct. Yeah, because they
They
were
were talking about
marsupials. They were Australian, right?
Tasmania. Yeah,
Oh
Tasmania.
yeah, duh.
Um, but they were also talking about because kind of the Tasmanian devil
Mhm.
has completely taken over. They're the highest animal on that food chain down there now.
Yeah,
So I mean,
they have no
they're only
competition really.
no,
From
and that's the thing. Their only predator historically were the Tasmanian tigers.
yeah,
So, but they were talking about bringing them back and introducing them back into Tasmania. How do you feel about how do you feel about that? Like I know talking about like the woolly mammoths and things like that, but how do you feel about bringing back like in extinct animals and reintroducing them back into their natural habitat and seeing what that does to the habitat?
obviously I'm not scientifically literate enough to know what the like on the contrary would be, but from an evolutionary perspective, no animal that has survived within the last or that has died off within the last probably since humans have been alive at the very least has evolved radical enough evolution to where it would not go right back to the thing is like the reason Tasmanian tigers are ruling Tasmania now and probably wreaking unfortunately a lot of havoc, maybe not like in total perspective, but like is because they're like in order if they didn't evolve to reproduce enough to keep their population stable from the threat of Tasmanian tigers, they would not have survived. They would have just been eaten by all the Tasmanian tigers. So it's like Tasmanian tigers or Tasmanian devils have not evolved to slow their reproduction down. It's been less than 100 years. So it's like to
Yeah.
me, I'm all for it in theory if it's done correctly. I don't know how you can screw it up really, but it's not like introducing an invasive species because it's like the reason invasive species are bad is because they're introduced to a habit that is brand new to them and it's instantly and it takes tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of years for an ecosystem to fully adapt. So it's like that
Yes.
ecosystem is still kind of adapted to Tasmanian tigers.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be like bringing back an American cheetah.
Yeah, I would have to. Yeah, I mean, again, because that's a little further back in the evolutionary code, and not only that,
about 12,000 years ago.
But again, just in our like generational lifetime since this country's been a thing, like mountain lions have gone way down in population. So it's like if you bring back an American cheetah, like again, you're talking about the island of Tasmania, which is a very, very small place. So it's like a couple things are endemic there. You're not talking about an entire continent of systems. So it's like when you bring back an American cheetah, it's like, are you going to bring back all the other American cheetah's predators? Are you going to bring back has it been long enough to where the prey of those animals and the competitors of those animals has significantly like evolved enough to where it would make a big difference if you did bring them back? Like that's the kind of stuff. And that's the kind of stuff that, again, I don't know these individual animals well enough to know that or not, but that's just kind of like my thought from the little teensy bits of biology knowledge that I know.
I mean, it's definitely it's a very it's a very interesting topic, groundbreaking science, groundbreaking information that these people are finding.
It is cool. I just think there are just so many other priorities.
Oh, but I thought that this was a good base episode for us to start with, seeing as some of the other topics that I want to cover. There's one particularly that I want to cover that Mark said no to first.
Aliens, aren't you?
No.
Okay.
I think I've covered everything that I had to cover, that I wanted to talk about on this episode. Anybody else?
I didn't even know what the topics were tonight, so clearly I have nothing else to say.
And see that we're going to wrap up the first episode of the Ignorant Skeptics podcast. But yeah, we'll do this episode bi-weekly. We'll do this every other week, and then the other weeks we'll be doing our Deep Impact podcast, which is sports and us just sitting around bullshitting about sports and things of that nature. God bless you.
Thank you.
But yeah, I think we should wrap up, and we'll do this next time.
Bye.